Connecting. All right, looks like we are live. And yes, we have people coming in. Cool. We'll just probably give it 1 minute. Let others, just let everybody have that 1 minute to join into the session. So,
Sure.
how's the weather there in London, Devender?
Yeah, it's bit of mix of yeah. It's you sometimes see 5 seasons in one day itself. So it's I mean, but I have to say the weather is pretty okay as of today. So it's not hot, not cold. Uh, so it's a fine weather today.
Sometimes moderate weather is also a blessing.
Yeah.
That's coming from a guy from Delhi, India, where weathers happen, where seasons happen to have extreme summers and extreme winters. So yeah, moderate weather is a blessing for if you ask me. So cool. I guess we can start the session now. All right. So
Awesome.
hey everyone, and thanks for joining in to TestMu Conference. We have another session with us. This time out, we're going to talk about how you can go beyond functional testing and look into areas where you can over which you can build quality assessment frameworks. I am Harshit Paul, and I'll be the host for this session. Before we start this, let me take care of a few housekeeping items real quick. This entire session will be recorded, and you will find the full recording of this session over our YouTube channel. In case you're not already subscribed to LambdaTest, make sure you go ahead, search it over the YouTube and subscribe, hit the subscribe button, because you'll find not just a recording of this session, but all the previous sessions that we've had as well in the day so far. And we will have a dedicated Q&A towards the end of this session. So in case you have any questions while Devender is presenting, make sure to drop them in the chat, and we'll try to answer as many of them as we can towards the end. Uh, Having said that, I would also like to thank all of our partners who have helped us organize this event. And I would encourage all of you to go ahead and check their booths after the session is over. You can do that via the reception. And having said all of it, I am delighted to welcome Devender Sharma with me. He is the head of quality engineering at Plentific, a PropTech company with over 20 years of experience in the IT industry. Devender specializes in architecting different automation frameworks at different levels and domains. He has 360-degree knowledge of implementing and scaling quality practices and processes. And today, Devinder is going to talk to us about key areas that we can look into beyond traditional function testing, and over which we can build quality assessment frameworks. And we'll see what principles we can follow and what practices we can put in place. So, if you're ready to look beyond functional testing, let's head right in. Devinder, I'll give that over to you.
Thank you, Harshit. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your kind words. That was a bit too much. Right, I'll go ahead and share my screen first.
Sure.
Uh, Let me know if you can see it. I hope you can see it
I can
now.
see it perfectly clear. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you. Welcome, everyone, whoever is there. Sorry if it's too late for you, and if it's in a good time, that's great. So let's carry on. I am Devender Sharma, and I think Harshit has already introduced me, so I won't bore you much on this. So, uh, right. So, okay. So this is the agenda we are going through today. What is functional testing? Very basic stuff. Why should we think beyond? What can help us? Some principles and practices, and favorite thing, summarize and adjourn, right? So right, carrying on, I mean, I think you should know a little bit more about me. uh, just to summarize, I have 20 years of experience. I won't bore you with what sort of stuff I have done. At present, I'm working with Plentific, which is a prop tech based company, basically works with the property management side of things, and I'm working as a head of quality engineering there. In most of my years, I have always built people, teams, quality, products, and always been around these three P's: people, process, and products, which is always been my favorite, because you can do whole some automation in this world. But these are the three things. If you take care of these three things, everything comes into place together. Some other aspects, I mean, LinkedIn, there is a LinkedIn link. So you can, if you like me, you can always connect with me, and anything I could help you, please be free to ask me. Right, I'm based in Wiltshire, which is around 1 hour from London. It's a beautiful countryside. Moved around, after pandemic, we basically moved down here in a small village in Wiltshire. It's a beautiful place. It's a historical place here in UK. It's very close to Stonehenge, one of the historical monument on Salisbury Plain in Wiltshire. Some other things I do. I love to play table tennis. I play professional table tennis, within Oxfordshire County since last year. But now I'll be moving to Wiltshire most probably. And other interest I have is, eating, foodie, travel, connect to people, those sort of things. So thank you very much for having, for listening to me on this. Let's carry on. Right. So starting with the first topic, what's functional testing, right? Okay, very small introduction. Functional testing ensures product behave as expected. Most of us make sure that this is working. Facts we all know, and there's nothing new, but I still wanted to highlight some of the key facts. Remember these sort of things where products are built by people for people, right? People use technology to build products. Technology itself is also created by people, and processes are made for people. So you can see how these three things work together with each other, and technology is part of, sort of wheel which is there beneath us, helping us out to speed up the processes. So, right. I mean, then the next question comes is, why should we think beyond functional testing, right? What's there beyond? So the first thing I think we should look at is the sort of users that we are going to face in real world. So when you start looking at the world with the real user perspective, you start seeing a user. Okay, there will be users on different platforms using different OS mobile devices. Probably your product is, I'm imagining it's a web platform which has access to mobile also these days. Everything digitalized. So you will have some users on different browsers trying to access your application, some users trying to mine data, get information as much as they can from your product, to sell it or do any good sort of things, maybe. Users redirected from other platforms. So as people sometimes jump from YouTube to LinkedIn or LinkedIn to some other places. So maybe some users will uh, unintentionally come to your platform. Users with special needs, there can always be people with special needs, who are not like, probably they don't have the normal abilities to do stuff, but they are special in every case. And then there will be some really interesting people, hackers trying to hack stuff from your system, from your application. Users from different locations and languages, again, as the world is getting more diverse and diverse around technology, we will have people working from different locations, and probably some other category of user types. So this is where, I mean, this is the first use case that lets us to imagine that function testing is probably not everything. We probably might have to cater for all these kind of users which are there in the real world. And that's where you start knowing more about your customers, when you think about them in that perspective. And then a couple of things here. When you start thinking about customer, you start looking at their characteristics, demographics, geographical locations. How are they going to behave in your system? So all the behavioral aspects, like journeys. Are they going to be new or returning users, sessions, page duration, multiple things, right? Here. And then you start looking at the technological stuff, like devices, browsers, operating systems. What are they going to use actually? What sort of technology are they going to use to access your applications and do all that sort of stuff? And then you start looking at the other last but not the least thing is the usage model. I mean, how are people using it? What sort of concurrency is there? What sort of peak times are there, right? Latency matrix, analytics, these sort of things are the ones we start looking at to know more about the customers. So here, basically, we are building use cases for us about, okay, the application doesn't matter. In terms of functional testing, we probably might have to think something beyond functional testing. So one of the key things to always to be, it's always good to be customer centric. So Then once you have thought about those use cases, you start projecting your ideas into this form where you start seeing, okay, probably are the users getting the experience and are they excited about getting into your platform? So how's the usability like? Is your platform reliable? So how is the reliability? Is the experience consistent for the users, or you know they see nightmares when they access your application in the daytime, and in the nighttime it's super fast? So you don't want that. So we need to see, look at the reliability. Then comes the accessibility. How accessible is the application to every range of users, whether they are people with special needs or normal people, or they could have any constraints which could restrict them to access the application. So are we solving those sort of problems? Performance is another thing. Is the experience responsive? I won't say anything about this. It's very important. We all know if something is really taking more than a second, probably we get frustrated. Oh no, what's happening? We start blaming technology. Security. Are we secure? Am I and my data protected? Secure. So this is where you start focusing on customers, looking at different angles of things, how basically we have to cater for customers. uh, so yes, we know now about all of these things, good things. What can help us? So the first thing I always mention is, always remember this: quality is everyone's responsibilities. We have come to a point now where quality engineering space is evolving with time. Everybody wants to be lean, release faster, scale very quickly, probably 10x times, 20x times. Probably this will get exponentially over coming time. So it's very important this quality becomes everybody's responsibility within your engineering team. And it's not just testers responsibility to be looking after quality, but everybody in the engineering to be looking at quality. So what do we have? So we have, I mean, this is something I really like, because I'll show you an example in a minute, where quality and capabilities assessment framework is probably the first step to look at where you are and where you're going to do, where you're going to reach, or where do you want to get to. It's same like you get into graduation first year and you want to see, your journey, your path, where you're going to get to. Or probably if you want to travel from probably my place to London, which is 1 hour journey, I really like always to look at the Google Maps, right? What's your journey? So I think these assessment metrics help to keep you realistic, assess yourself, and take that journey step by step. And it's a helpful tool to use. And the one example which I'm giving you is much more around TMMI maturity levels and process areas. So this is how you can start imagining about your process, about the maturity of the process. You can go to TMMI site and look around this. So these have some levels, starting with the level 1, which is the initial level. So consider an example: you are a quality engineer and you get into a team, and you are very new in the team and you don't know anything what's there or what's not there. So you start this framework as an assessment tool, which you can use for measuring and seeing how strong is my current team right now. So level 1 basically says that testing is chaotic, there is no defined processes, and often uh, basically things are not going in right way. There is no proper testing being done by the team. So that's where initial level is. Level 2 is when you get more managed. So testing becomes a managed process and is clearly separated from debugging. So you can see here some of the aspects, like you start putting test policy and strategy, test planning, test monitoring and control, test design, test execution, test environment. And then comes the third level. Basically, you get more defined. So now from managed to defined is, you are no more confined to phase approaches that follows coding. You become more organized, more leaner. You start defining your life cycles, your development life cycle in agile or sprint process or Kanban process, whatever processes you follow within your teams. You start to define and basically harden some of the processes at this stage. And then you get into level 4, which is the really place, which is a really good place to be in. I would say probably 3 is a good place, but 4 is much better place, where you start measuring yourself. And unless you measure yourself, you will never know where you are getting to, right? We always should measure ourselves or measure any processes, any mechanisms, or monitor whatever we have in place. So this is where you start putting some metrics around test measurement, product quality evaluation, advanced reviews, those sort of stuff, which can help you to measure yourself or measure the test maturity levels within your teams. Level 5 is much more optimization. Probably measure 4 takes you to a place where it starts giving you feedbacks around, okay, I'm doing well in what sort of areas, and where we can get better is the level 5, which is more of optimization state. We never stop. As you know, improvisation can never be stopped. We always have to keep evolving with time, and optimization is something which then keeps happening. And these sort of step approach or journey helps you to get there in measuring those sort of things. So this framework I would really recommend for the starters, or for people who who don't know where the testing is. This gives you a 360-degree view of stuff in your team, and it really helps to start thinking about your journey, how you're going to take your journey. Okay, so the next thing, I mean, quality engineering. We all talk about quality engineering, great way from QA. There was a time when we used to be called as testers. We evolved quality assurance, quality control people, and then quality engineering. We are getting into engineering space. And I think quality is a very big asset when it is attached to engineering. And when it gets attached to engineering, it becomes a bigger probably a bigger responsibility for all of us as a discipline to empower everybody with that quality knowledge. And how I see this, how this is evolving with my experience and with the teams I've worked around, is that whole basically quality has to become whole engineering aspect, and not just it should not be just confined to us as a quality engineers. We should try to spread it out. And as the word is already attached, we are trying to engineer quality at every space we can see, right? So testing is just one of the aspects now of quality engineering, but not the only one. We have a lot of stuff. So let's see. I mean, some of the principle and practices I believe are the core values we should never forget. It has helped me as a leader in different teams, in different domains, different projects, to be successful. And I always sell them to everybody. Uh, Always engineer for quality. Automated tests are part of delivery. It's very important. Don't, I mean, I'll go into those details later on. Quality embedded teams. It's very important, right? Now, these days, as the engineering is evolving, right, the quality engineering is also evolving. And a lot of places you will find the quality engineers are probably part of verticals, where probably there are set of 5 to 10 developers and there is just one quality engineer. And that's where, I mean, how, what sort of principles and practices can help you, and this is what I'm gonna go through now. So let's see, principle, what does engineer for quality means. So I think this is the principle: ensure you have appropriate strategies in place for both production and non-production environments before development begins, right? Start designing, start strategizing about performance, security, compatibility, accessibility, automation, these sort of aspects. And then what's going to be the rationale behind it? So it's going to increase speed of delivery, right? Because you'll start getting more faster feedbacks when you start doing when you start working on these sort of principles. And it's going to always reduce cost, right? Cost of manual testing, cost of overheads that can be created with manual testing all the time, repetitively in all the environments, those sort of rationales. So the value it's going to bring to you is, overall, again, the overall reduction in cost, speed of delivery, reduce risk, more confidence you're going to get. But there could be some implications when you start implementing this sort of principles in any team, which could be, you probably, some people in your team might need additional training or hiring, may need some investment in appropriate tools or infrastructure, right? So I mean, I'll show some examples later on about some of the aspects around here. But then practice. Now, since you know the principle, what sort of things do we have to practice, right, within our team, within our engineering team? Ensure you have the right skills. It's very important. uh, Having the right skills in place, or getting educated for the right skills, or getting trained for the right skills, are important. Engage quality engineers from the outset. Now, if I mean, some of you, if you can relate, if you're part of a vertical team where you have 5 to 10 developers and you're alone there in the team, it's very important you get involved in each and every process of what's happening within the agile process, right? You don't want to be in a place where you are just doing the testing and you don't know anything what's happening at the earliest. So that's where it comes from. Focus on what you need to do to move fast before you move fast, right? It's very important. I mean, there have been instances where probably if I am a skilled automation engineer, probably I just want to jump on automation and just do the automation, right, straight away. Give me the manual test, I'm just going to automate everything out. uh, and that's where things can go really nasty, can go wrong. Always be calm there, focus, find out what's the right steps, and then do it is very important. Avoid a firefighting culture. I mean, this is much more around the culture habits. There is a no blame shame game. We all work as a quality, sorry, we all work towards quality, right? So it's very important to stay cohesive as a team and try to help each other out in improving the quality within the teams. And when I'm saying help each other out, that means your engineering team, which might be set of developers, and you in that team probably. Focus on shipping software. Again, this is very important because sometimes probably you're testing something, you'll find 10 defects, and when you find defects you'll probably feel, oh, no, you have to fix all the defects to ship this software, and probably that's not the right approach. Probably risk assessment is something which can help you out there. So that's why we should focus on shipping software with some acceptable defects, probably, which users don't care or are very low risk for users. Aim for reuse of tools and knowledge, build reference patterns, and propagate. Yeah, this is something I think is very important. When you're working in different teams, different verticals, it's very important that team A, if they have used a tool and they have the knowledge, should always broadcast that knowledge to other teams. So you build good reference patterns and you can propagate the knowledge among everybody. Right. So coming to the next principle is more around automated tests are part of delivery. Now, again, yeah, let's go to the principle. Automated tests should be delivered as part of new feature or change of production and not treated as an optional or post release task. I mean, in most of the cases, some of the cases I've seen in the past where, the delivery happens before and then we start automating the test. Probably that's not the approach you want to have. We as a team should be in a place where we can deliver as well as operationally deliver the feature, and operationally being much more around whether it's we are not introducing regression, for example, in place. And this is the rationale we are working around. It's again reducing cost and increasing the speed of delivery. The value you basically get out of from it is, yeah, I mean, reducing the risk of issues, and you're enforcing the code and UI to be more structured because you are adding the test automation as well, as and when you're delivering the product. Some of the implications most of you might feel is, probably some of the developers are not skilled enough to write the automation in good place, or use the tools in the right way. Sometimes not, probably they are not trained uh, to use the automation framework in the right place. So the education part plays a little bit of element there. And probably the projects are not budgeted. Oh, we cannot automate tests, we need to deliver. That sort of problems can come up, right? And shift mindset in both developers and quality engineers is again very important because we don't have to be very tight about quality. Should not be looked after by everyone, right? We should be open for everybody to look after quality, and we being the quality champions and advocates among it. So I think that's very important. So that's a sort of mind shift is very important at this place where we are in the world we are. And this is the practice, some of the practices that you can adopt, automate at the lowest layer, make tests accessible, make tests small and independent as much as you can, integrate automated tests in deployment pipelines, usual stuff, right? Ensure clear ownership of automated tests is also an important sort of thing. So everybody knows what level of tests you can add. But then, of course, these are two examples where you can see test pyramid and test trophy are well-known test approaches of how you automate stuff. Very high-level overview of how basically you can build your automated tests, right? Unit test being the much more cheaper one, and integration and into a test, the cost gets higher. And the test trophy much more probably these days favorable to the front end automation, where the probably because we are breaking up things in micro front ends these days, probably people like writing more integration tests, which becomes more fatter, and only unit tests, which are much more, I think, useful in writing. So, I mean, again, both practices have their own advantages, disadvantages, and it depends on the context and the project you should be using it, right? Uh, Right, and this takes us to the test approach. I mean, test pyramid. It's always been my favorite one. Uh, you start from the unit test, you start building up contract and integration test, uh, and you can see when you start, climbing this ladder of test pyramid, you are basically breaking that isolation. So unit tests are basically tested in more isolated environments. You don't need any environments, right? And then in contract tests or integration tests, you start becoming or interacting with different components. So you can see the integration levels are getting more complex at every stage. And uh, and then comes to a point where you run end-to-end tests and exploratory testing, which will never go away, which should always be there, because manual testing, I think, is the most important thing that everyone should be doing. In some of my teams, we run test charters, which is much more controlled and effective way of getting results from exploratory testing. So I really like this and encourage this sort of testing approach. Another principle is more around quality embedded teams. We have teams, again, to give you an example, again, if you're working with 5-10 developers, it becomes very important that you are not the point of failure where quality becomes a bottleneck for releases. Everybody shouting, oh no, the quality testing is going to take now 2-3 days of testing, and then we will ship something. No, we have to get rid of those bottlenecks, right? And I think these principles, whole team approach, fast feedback, and exploration are the principles which will help you out to get rid of those sort of problems. The rationale behind it is basically to avoid creating test related bottlenecks. We don't want to slow down delivery. Delivery is what our business is, basically evolving, right? The business is getting money from the faster deliveries, and we all want to get faster, leaner. So probably our having quality embedded within teams helps and gives us this sort of values, increased speed of delivery. Some of the implications you might feel is, probably the processes problems, and again the mindset problem, which comes into the play, like quality and software engineering community, where developers might start saying or objecting, oh, why should I do the testing, right? But that's the important part, and that's what I think is the cultural part that we all might have to change and evolve. Some of the practices, I think, you all might have heard about. If not, that's great. I mean, you'll find it here. Uh, a whole team approach where you can do some of the example activities, like you can use BDD approach, which could be helpful. Three amigos to be more cohesive and more involved with developers, and do the sessions more often. Again, shift left, the shift left process is very important. So definition of ready and definition of done if you're working in agile teams. So those sort of story mappings and impact from the story mappings, and how clear and documented requirements are, is a very important thing, and that helps to make your process, refine your process better and better. Fast feedback, again, if you have quality embedded within the teams, you'll obviously get very faster feedbacks. And we basically, we as quality engineers should encourage this process of, yeah, let's start writing the test at the right levels. Unit test coverage is one of the appropriate ones, easier ones, faster ones. Static code analysis, start focusing on API test, if not. Uh, and yeah, I mean, some of the things are well known: robust test architecture, pair programming testing, alerts and monitoring in all environments. Very important one. Right, and the last one is more exploration. So start running exploratory testing within your teams. It helps a lot, time to time, talking directly to customers, monitoring production systems, and these sort of, I think the practices really help you to embed quality into teams and make a holistic approach so people know what to do. Okay, moving on. Let's see some of the examples. Just for demonstration purpose. Okay, don't stick to the examples because they are very much example based. What I'm going to show you. The first thing I always like doing is having matrix in place. So why is it important? How can we know progress if we don't measure it, right? uh, Probably when you were a child you were always measuring yourself, your height, weight, or something. That's how you measure yourself, right? That's how we see progress in every area. So that's, again, same principles should apply to our testing world, where having metrics in place for everything possible that gives value should be considered. So some of the things probably which mostly helps is ways of working. How your agile practices are helping you out. All the practices that you use there, and same with the code quality, right? Like for unit test, probably you'll say, okay, this much code coverage is what I expect, this much automation coverage or test coverage is what I expect. CI/CD pipelines, bugs and incidents. So these are some of the, I think some of the areas where having matrix in place really helps you to reflect you where we are with the quality of the products. And there are some, so these are the basic one, but there could be more things which you can look at in real world. Now let's look at an example of, imagine you have environments like this. Probably you have local environment, QA staging environments, and production environment. Sorry, I'm using uh, very generic names, but in your context it might be called something else. Okay, maybe dev environment, QA staging, test, whatever. So non-production production environments. And then we probably, I'm imagining, probably if everything has been done really well beyond function testing, probably teams have considered designing all these sort of tests that you will see laid out here: unit test, contract testing, function regression testing, end-to-end testing, cross-browser mobile testing. Lambda test is a very good place to do cross-browser mobile testing, localization testing, visualization, accessibility, security, performance, stress, load, analytics testing. Sorry, I want to stress out here. Uh, I mean, I have found testing analytics as an important bit, which sometimes we don't realize it's something to test. Because just to quote you an example, analytics. Say for example, any customer comes on any web application. Suppose you have a web application as a product, and the user is clicking. So those events are possibly being captured in your analytics, right? And those analytics basically starts creating a dashboards for you to show the usage, how the people are behaving in your platform, how they are using your platform. But at some point, the coding practices or the way the codings is happening, this analytics can break, right? So now one mechanism is to look at those dashboards and see, oh, I'm not getting any data now these days, what's happening? And then you go back and see what's broken, right? Or you go with the shift left approach, where you think way ahead of things to break, right? And you start automating, or at least writing or testing analytics at the stage whenever we release. So whenever a release is shipped, we test all these sort of aspects. Whatever applies in your projects is very important in your context, right? So so yeah, just, consider these examples. You are in a place where you have all these kind of tests automated and these set of environments. Now, what happens is basically, again, the mindset, which is very important, is you start putting quality gates in your pipelines. Again, always remember shift left. We should always focus on testing or applying the process very early. The more fatter your initial process is, the more leaner your later process will get into. Okay, so if you want to make your releases very leaner, probably initial processes will sound very fatty. Oh my god, we do multiple number of things. But then eventually, as the processes iterate themselves, you will find we get more leaner, we get more fast, the releases happen very quickly. So again, quoting some of the examples now, since you have those environments, local QA staging environments. So now if I want to put a quality gates, probably I'll start laying out these kind of tests very initially in the stage, right? Starting code analysis. Sorry, I've given some examples of tool. I really don't like giving examples of tools because I'm then objectifying them. But okay, so we do have examples. SonarQube, Code Climate, which you can use. Do security analysis, again, very much early in the process. Performance analysis tests, you can use Lighthouse, unit tests, accessibility tests, integration tests. So here the focus that I want you to look at is you have bunch of tests, and then how you plan your test early in the process to make sure you're running and identifying the issues very early in the process. Of course, very good things that people have said in different sessions about, started with Richard, where he mentioned about trim. That sort of process applies to everything. It's a very important concept. So we keep refining, we keep iterating on what we do. Again, when basically you want to move your release from QA staging to production, you probably want to set up another quality gate where you want to run these sort of tests, probably localization test, cross-browser mobile testing, backward compatibility testing, end-to-end testing, and exploratory testing. In fact, if you can do this sooner, awesome, that's great. And some part of it probably can be done to make your releases leaner over time. And then, probably it's not good to start after moving everything to production. Oh, yes, I've pushed everything to production. Let's forget about it. Quality might be good. No, we look at post-release tests, alerts, and monitoring, some sort of observability, right? That's important. So that comes under quality checks. Uh, so this so this doesn't stop here, right? So we should also have some sort of test which we can run on demand, like probably security testing. If I want to run really cohesive security testing, by the way, I always encourage security testing should be continuous process. We cannot leave anything. The way the architecture or the features change, they can introduce any loopholes in the application. uh, but yeah, on demand basically gives you that power. You can run it every time, you can schedule it, you can do whatever you want with it. But yes, we should consider doing some of the on-demand testing, like chaos testing, again, being one of the subject, very favorable subject of some people in the industry, uh, where you want to see how modular your architecture is probably. And these sort of testing is basically helping you to shape up your product architecture and all the technical objectives that lay behind the technicality of the product, right? So, right. So what now this, so the examples that you have seen basically brings you to the collaboration. So it is very important to have collaboration plans in place. Uh, as you can see on my screen, around people, what's important: testing process, automation process, automated tools, environment awareness and access, CI/CD process contacts, some of the good things around processes, which helps you in very good engagements and collaborations. And then don't forget about products again. Always doing continuous showcases, talking to consumers, reviewing your domains is another important thing to collaborate with each other, with every team. And you can see, I mean, like in this process you can always see how we are always touching people, process, and products, and how everything evolves around this. uh, and that's what quality is, right? We are trying to engineer quality in every space possible, not just Yeah, I mean, doing some sort of automation, that's not enough probably. Okay, summarizing key values around processes. So I think I've spoken about some of the good things already, which are probably very useful. Always think beyond function requirements, go beyond things, see where things can break down or can be a nightmare to test. Define test strategy and objectives. Always think shift left. How can you make your test cheaper? How you can make things better? How you can make the processes leaner? Again, these practices are good to have, but they are not always mandatory to have. You can always choose and use some of the processes or the key values from this, right? uh, and something about people, I mean, it's very important. If you're a quality engineer, make quality everyone's responsibility within your uh, platform, your company, your teams, wherever you are. Coordinate, collaborate, and communicate. Again, implement beyond function requirements. Always raise questions, always be curious. I'm always curious about everything actually. Test first, automate more. Automation, having more automation in place really helps. Running quality guilds, code reviews, pairing, this gives so much exposure around people. I mean, this empowers you as a people. So do practice those sort of things, add more skill set within your squads and grow them. uh, and yeah, provide better career opportunities. If you're a leader in team, if you know, I'm sure there are a lot of managers here, so they should encourage this kind of practices, I believe. And with this, thank you very much. Sorry, I've gone really long probably, but thank you very much.
I guess pretty much everybody enjoyed all the slideshow, and I could certainly see a lot of emojis and chat reactions coming in to second that the slides were really insightful there. So thank you so much, Devender. Let's quickly jump on to some interesting Q&As which I've come across. Uh, we'll start off with what Manish has to ask. What are your thoughts on doing non-functional testing, such as load performance, in the early phase of software development?
Wow, I think, I mean, great question. I mean, my thoughts are, if this is possible, I mean, it's really hard to do load test performance tests very early in the software development when your software is not ready. But if people can do this at the very early stage, that means your architecture is really mature enough, which allows you to run these sort of testing very early in the process. So if it answers your question, I mean, bringing in these practices in place really helps you out to shape up the architecture of the product as well. Okay, it's not always, because sometimes, I mean, traditionally, when I was, I mean, I won't say traditionally, but I would say probably in olden days when I was working as a tester, I would probably focus on the user requirements, whatever I'm getting, whether they are working or not, will users be happy or not. And beneath that, we never looked at the tech stack which was responsible for making those products. And those tech stacks probably might be crumbling and getting more complicated and complicated. And we might be, so right now it's very important to have wrinkle free tech stack basically. So the more we test, the more testing practices we bring early in the process, the more mature our tech stack is going to get. And the more tech stack, I mean, you can imagine, right? If your tech stack is much more modular, much more mature, much more, I mean, you can do anything with it. Like, probably if it's a thing which you can remove, you can add, you can do a lot of stuff. Uh, that's great, right? And these sort of technologies, I think this sort of testing helps us to shape up that technology and product architecture. It's very important. So I hope I have answered the question.
Most definitely. And we have another question from Gustavo, and it says, in your personal experience, are DevOps skills needed for quality engineer, at least for the deploy process validations?
Great question again, Gustavo. Thank you very much for asking these questions. These days, I mean, you might have heard about DevOps test sort of culture, which is evolving, right? Every, uh, every, I think, the test, the quality is so much into every engineering now. It's very important, right? And I think my personal experience, DevOps, again, is a skill set which is very probably which is very concentrated on making sure the operation side of developers are maintained, created, or evolved in good practices, right? Again, the quality engineers are people who need to work very closely with DevOps, because we need to make sure the way DevOps are building up those operational objectives are also shaped up correctly, right? The example I showed, like the quality gates that we build up. Now, probably a DevOps engineer might be writing some scripts to enable or probably make you, make the quality, not the quality engineers, but all the engineering team empowered to run the test in the pipelines or CI/CD pipelines or in cloud or wherever you're running test. And quality engineers have to really, we are probably, I think we are uh, probably the users, the real-time users who are going to use those operational stuff, right? And I think it becomes very important for quality engineers to have that perspective, work very closely with DevOps, and shape up that process of operations, how those operations are happening, how the releases are happening in the production or non-production environments, what sort of tests are we running. And within test also, it gets, I mean, there are so much, I mean, you can imagine the width and the depth of the technologies are so high. I mean, I'm still learning so many things. And I think what I'm trying to say here is, when you start working with developers, you are shaping up the uh, architecture of the product, is what I want to say. When you're working with DevOps team, you're shaping up the operational effectiveness of the implementation they are doing. So they are also building a system in place, right? And we need to make sure it's exercising this, exercising the processes in right place. And yeah, quality engineers, I mean, when you get into that process, you automatically learn from that process. And I think it's very good to be very close with DevOps people. And at least for the deploy process validations, yes, Gustavo, I agree with you. I mean, this is one thing, but there could be more things.
Cool. So this is again another question which must be in minds of many freshers who are looking to start off a career point. As a person who wants to choose testing as a career, what is the roadmap of the testing skills a person may need in order to learn one after the other to be a satisfied QA tester or engineer?
Yeah, I think, okay. Thank you. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you very much for your question. I mean, if you're starting testing as a career, I mean, I would love it because I chose it. I chose this career not as a, probably I didn't want it to be a tester, but I got into it because I was not getting job at the time, and then started testing it. And then when I got into it, I really saw the value, because I mean, the satisfaction word is very much related to what level of satisfactions you have, right? Like for me, I'm never satisfied. I'm very passionate about testing. I love to do manual testing, even though I'm looking after a big team. I just want to go and work with people and be very close with them and try to learn from people, right? Learning never goes off. And I mean, the roadmap, sorry, to answer your question, the roadmap of the testing skills, I would probably start with the basics. And being curious will make sure that you start getting skillful in each and every aspect of things. Because for me, 360-degree approach is the most appropriate one, because I try to learn everything and I really want to have I learn, it's a joy for me, right? So probably when you start getting into testing, probably you'll find, probably for some people, manual testing is the satisfaction point. They love doing manual testing, and they should not stop, right? That's where your passion will take you to. And then probably while you're doing that, probably you'll feel, oh, I've done enough manual testing, I want to go into this. And then you probably might get into non-function testing, performance testing, and you'll learn how to do performance testing. And you'll think, okay, I should probably become master in performance testing, because it's a very niche skill, and probably it's being paid heavily on it, and you might stick to it. So I mean, there is no defined paths to this. But as a starting point, of course, manual testing is something which you should obviously go for, and see what's out there. Don't get I would say, don't get blinded with the choice of automation tools, because when I started, I was always searching for open source automation tools. What can I use? Which tool is better than what tool? I mean, it's not the tool which is better than XYZ. It's probably with experience, what I've found or learned is probably is the perspective, it is the context, it is the project you're working in. There are n number of factors that basically helps you to choose the tool and products. So, I mean, that's what I would suggest, Daniel. Sorry if I've not answered your question in a straight way.
Great advice again. And so, what are you testing as a part of analytics? I guess you already touched upon it between the session, but let's quickly recap there.
Yeah, sure. Mahati, thank you very much for your question. What are you testing as part of analytics? Okay, so give you an exact answer. Say, for example, you are on a website and you click on something, and there comes the event on your console. Probably you can see a Google Analytics event that generates, and that event that is generated as part of analytics is probably fed to some other external systems. So when I have to test it, I'm making sure if I click something that analytics is generated or not. Now, if you already have automation in place, this is very easy to automate, right? So where I will automate, probably some people like automating them very early in the stages, right? In probably at the unit test place, where if you have tools like Jest or something. Sorry, I'm again saying about tools, but I'll just give you an example which I worked in. There are a lot of tools. Okay, don't stick to Jest. Just an example. You build up a unit test, and in that unit test you basically you basically run a virtual DOM or whatever, and then that's where you can test the analytics automatically rather than testing it manually at the later stages. So these sort of tests really help you, and they should be in place because it's basically making you future proof for basically the upcoming releases or uh, any other benefits that you will get out of it. Hope I have answered the question.
You're answering questions in great depth, and in fact, we're getting those responses on the chat as well. So just wanted to highlight that. All right, next one is any suggestion on how to get developer buy-in for shift left testing?
Just kick him. No, no, no. Sorry. No. How to get developer buy-in for shift left testing? Yes, it's a very hard process. It's a cultural change. It's not easy to do it. I am doing it with like 100 plus engineers right now. This thing in my company, and the good thing is people always have heart in right place if they are really keen and passionate about the technology. Uh, of course, developers are very they're skillful. They think, why should they do testing in place? But imagine you are cooking a food and that food doesn't have any quality, right? So it's same thing. If you're developing something, it should have a quality in place. And to convince them for shift left testing, I think is always, it's a cultural thing. So we have to really work closely with them. And thank you, Natalie, for this question. It's very important to show them the advantages. You have to work really close with them, honestly, and start showing them the value in it. And once I think once they start seeing the value, now how to show that value is a very objective thing to do. There are different styles, different mechanisms to do it. I mean, my probably the best way for me will be, first of all, getting closer to developers, learning how and what practices they use and do, and then doing three amigo sort of sessions. Start, it helps in putting that perspective of testing in them. Whenever they build something, they start testing something, right? So in three amigo sessions, like what I used to do was, you discuss a ticket, and during three amigos, I'll start documenting the test, and I will say to developer, look, whenever you are done with the acceptance criteria, please do make sure these tests are working before handing over to me. And then whenever they'll hand over to you, they are testing it. So already we have done some sort of shift left there. But then will come a point where the developers will say, oh my god, this is getting crazy, I'm doing manual testing myself. And then they will start thinking about automating it. And that's where the culture starts coming up. And then you have to really you have to be smart and, yeah, just embed the quality into the team, right? So that's what I would say.
Yeah. So
Thank you,
in fact, we
Nabil.
have a follow-up question which also revolves around what is shift left testing. And this one comes from Kashif. And it says, some folks might confuse shift left with the meaning that testing needs to be done by a developer, whether be it unit test or end-to-end. Is that what shift left truly means, or does it mean that developers should focus more on unit testing?
Yeah, I think from my perspective, look, the terms shift left is a term which, yeah, I mean, probably if you'll go over internet, you will see numerous number of definitions around shift left, right? What I mean, the prospective is very important with the shift left. I don't think it's something related to people and technology. It's much more prospective related. So what processes or what sort of practices you are following which you can shift left in the process. So imagine your process is a linear process. uh, I mean, let's take the example, you're running unit test, integration test, end-to-end test. Now what could be shift left in this? You cannot one shift left perspective could be whatever test I have at the integration level or end-to-end level, can we move some of the tests further down? Can I write some of the integration tests as unit test? So that's a shift left perspective, right? So you're reducing the complexity or the heaviness or the cost from the right side to left side. So that's the perspective of shift left, to put in easy word. But yeah, I mean, between developer and QE, I mean, this sort of thing, I think that's a very wrong thing to say these days. We all are engineers, and it's very important that quality becomes everybody's responsibility, right? So we should not, I mean, when shift left term comes, we the meaning is mostly around the perspective of how you take things and how you tackle things, and which testing you should do earlier in the process that would help you out, right? It's much more around making the process better and better, leaner, and more effective in coming time.
Yep, and I think that does about it for this session, because we have further sessions lined up into this session as well. But in case we have missed out on any question, you can find Devinder in the fluid space. He would be there. And having said that, let me just see if we have any more questions over here. Nothing. Cool. I guess we have covered pretty much everything. But in case we, again, as I said, if we have left anything out, feel free to join us in the fluid space. You can find Devinder over there and engage with him further. Thank you so much, Devinder, for this great session. We have had a lot of responses in the chat, welcoming all the insights and uh, in-depth explanation that you've given to everyone in this session. The three P's, definitely: people, process, practice. Something so basic but mostly forgotten amidst the tight deadlines in today's fast-paced environment. I'm certain that this session worked as a great reminder to those who look back on the three P's, and a tremendous stuff, for budding professionals going forward. So
Great.
having said that, we will be uploading this entire session on YouTube. So, and the sessions that we have conducted earlier as well, and the ones that are upcoming. So in case you are not already subscribed to Lambda's YouTube space, you can go ahead and do that and find the entire recording over there. Or in case you joined this midway, somewhere in the middle of this session, we have got you covered. Don't worry about it. Thank you so much, Devinder.
Cool. Cheers. Thank you, Harshit, and
Thanks
everyone
everyone.
very
Take care.
much. Yeah,
Happy
bye.
testing.